it's Kevin here. Welcome to a video. So IELTS for today. Now we've got a first time essay submitted. Just adjust this. Is that better? We've got first time letter submitted by one of my group members on Telegram. Links below as always. So we're going to take a look at that. I've got the criteria and I wrote a sample to illustrate my point. Okay, first things first, disclaimer, fair use, etc., because we're going to be looking at the criteria here. So let's have a look at this at first. Right, it's a little bit larger. Okay. Is that alright? Yeah, that's good. And just in case I need to make some changes, I'll put some changes on. Right, so newly reported question or topic. Interviews form the basic selecting criteria for most large companies. However, some people think that the interview is not a reliable method of choosing whom to employ. To what extent do you agree or disagree? Okay, so that's the topic, and this is the essay we're going to have a look at first. That was my example. Now, first things first, this is too short. It's only 239 words. Now the criteria, I'll get my pen out. This is the method of assessment. This is what they do. So they count the words at first. If it's less than a certain amount, you do get a penalty for task response because it's too short. It says at least 250. Most IELTS essays are about 280, 90, maybe 300, because that's all you can reasonably write in half an hour. So they go through the criteria. They start with task response at first. Okay, so they start with task response, cohesion, coherence, lexis and grammar. So they start with a statement. Is it a 9, is it an 8, is it a 7? They check the descriptors below, above, etc. So here we go, task response. Right, so all parts of a prompt are fully addressed and the question is fully explored. A clear, fully developed position which directly answers the question. This is important. And the ideas are relevant, fully extended and well supported. Okay, so we can see ideas. The less well you support your ideas, your score starts going down. That's interesting, yeah? And you need to make sure that you address both parts or all parts of the prompt equally. If some are more fully, then it starts going down. And then if your conclusions are not justified, if your ideas are insufficiently developed, or your supporting arguments are less relevant than they could be, which we'll see in this essay, and if you don't totally completely address the prompt, all of that means is how well have you answered the actual question. Okay, how well have you answered the question? So the question here is right. Some people think that the interview is not the most reliable method used in recruitment. Do you agree or disagree with that? That's it. Now, it has been argued that interviews are a main method. Well, it doesn't argue. It's not an argument. It's a statement. An argument is when you put forward a series of prepositions in opposition to some other point of view. So that's not an argument. That's simply a statement of fact, I would have thought. It's factual. So it hasn't been argued. What the question is how reliable just how good is the interview as a means of choosing staff. So it hasn't been argued, really. It's simply a statement. Suitable staff. Now, it doesn't say that it's not fair. Being reliable and being fair are not the same thing. Yeah? Fair implies that interviews are unfair, as in there's some kind of prejudice or bias in the use of an interview. But that's not what the question says. It says it's simply not reliable. So that implies that there is a more reliable way to choose a potential employee. Okay. I strongly agree. Have experience and ability as factors in the hiring process. Now, again, right. So, first of all, I believe experience comes with the recruitment criteria. Okay. So, right. This basically says why experience is good, but it's not talking about. It doesn't actually say that. If you don't believe the interview is a reliable means of choosing whom to employ, you have to put forward an alternative means of deciding who to employ. Okay? Experience is one of the recruitment criteria, but it's talking about what is the method, what's the means of deciding. What's the means? How do you choose? So it doesn't actually say here. It says experience can be considered one of the recruitment criteria. Well, yeah. HR people look at your CV, they say, oh yeah, Kev's got all this experience. Let's bring him in from an interview. So that's one of the criteria, but it's not a method of choosing. They don't simply look at experience and say, oh right, he's got all this experience, he's got less, we'll employ him without speaking to this person. It's about means, a method, which this doesn't explain. People with experience will perform better in the workplace. Well, maybe. As a result, they will contribute, but well, they might do. This example, which report 60% plus experience implies and more. What does that actually mean? It's meaningless. 62% of companies with experience. So, does that mean that the other 38% have inexperienced employees? Then, how does that make sense? Exactly. More successful in their work. Okay. Second, ability. But again, so if you don't like interviews for choosing your staff, then what method do you think is reliable? It doesn't say. It says ability, but how do you measure this? How is it assessed? Which is essentially what the interview is. It's a means of assessment of choosing. So you say, okay, ability is important. Well, yeah, because you don't want to hire incompetence. But again, how do you find out whether they are able or not? What's the method? So, creating ordered harmony, essential skills. Okay, yeah. But how can you measure that a potential employee has these skills? They might say so on their CV, which is one reason why they have interviews. So I could say all kinds of stuff on my CV. I can do this and this and that. How do you know? You need some kind of proof that I can do as I say. So either you get me in for an interview, you give me some kind of a task. Otherwise, how can you find out? So you see what I'm talking about, it doesn't address the question. The question is, if interviews are not the best way, if face-to-face interviews are not the most reliable means, because people can say anything in an interview. How do you know what's the best way? What is the best way if you don't agree? It's interviews. So this doesn't actually tell me this. It just says that, you know, having ability is good, yeah, but how can you decide who has the best or the most ability? Experience and ability, but again, how is that measured? It's talking about method, means and method. So that's why I don't think these examples particularly work, and it doesn't really address the issue or question, as in, what's the best way? Is it some practical test? Like, right, so if we take a look at mine, right? So all these, right, so let me see what's a good one. So, okay. So now I have lots of doctors, of students, right, who are taking the occupational English test. And they have to take the occupational English test to prove they can communicate, but they also have to take various exams, either USMLE for America or PLAB 1 and 2 for the UK, to prove their ability. They don't, and they also have to have an interview. So they don't simply send in a resume and they say, oh, I am a doctor, I can do this. Oh, okay, we'll take your word for that, doctor, especially if you're from overseas. Why would we doubt you? Well, no, of course they don't. What's the method? So they give them they have an interview or interviews. They give them a language, a test to prove their ability, and they give them other medical exams to prove their ability. So the CV talks about the experience, but they are tested. So it isn't just come for an interview, we'll take your word, Mr. Doctor, that you are in fact a doctor. Of course not. So interviews are widely regarded, primary method, I believe interview, right. So my main point is interviews are effective, but we need to combine other evaluation. Now, if we think about particular categories of jobs, which I talk about here in paragraph 2, if you're an IT guy and you want to work for some tech company, they don't just interview you, they give you a task to find out, can you do what you say you can do? Anyway, one reason interviews are valuable. So this is like a balanced, I say, you know, yeah, but we need to also have this. So interviews are valuable communication skills that are difficult to gauge through written material. So in other words, right, you can put any old crap on your CV, but I've got great communication skills, blah, blah, blah. I'm so confident, but until we speak to you to find out, can you actually speak English? Can you communicate? What's your personality like? We need to talk, right? And you can't gauge this through simple written materials like a resume or a CV. So I explain these kind of qualities. I'm not going to read it all out word for word. You can read it. I'll put it all on the screen and pause it. Anyway, so for instance, in a sales position at some company like IBM, they are assessed not only on their answers but their ability to build rapport. So they give them some kind of a test, you know. So a typical interview thing, you go in and they say, okay, I want you to sell me this computer, and you have to run through your sales pitch. Or you go for the job at a dealership, and they say, right, the first guy who walks into the yard, I want you to sell him a car. Go prove what you say you can do. Okay. Interactions can reveal a great Okay. So I say interviews are good because face to face. Okay. However, though, this is a contrast. technical or creative expertise. So this is why, like, if you're an artist, say, or some graphic designer, you send a portfolio. You don't simply say, you know, in an interview, oh, I can paint really good, honest. You know, oh yeah, I'm good at taking pics. They want you to show them. Show me. Here's my portfolio, here's my stuff, here's something you wanted me to create. It's practical, yeah? So I say, you know, interviews are good, but for some things, maybe we need something more. Okay? Software developer may impress during the interview, but they may struggle to complete a real-world coding task. So you may do well in an interview. You may be, not to mince words, a good at bullshitting. Oh, I'm the best IT guy in the world. You should employ me. I could do the same thing. Say, oh, I'm the bestest teacher. I'm the absolutist, bestest. I'm the bestest teacher in the whole wide world. Which I would say in any case, but I've got something to back it up. People look at my success rate with my students. I've got lots of testimonials from real people who say, thanks to Kev, I passed this, I passed that, I passed this, I passed that. So it's not just me saying, I'm the bestest. I'm the bestest. That should give you a clue. But you need proof, right? Or for teachers, what lots of companies do, they get you to teach a trial lesson. Yeah, so you apply for a job, they give you an interview, and you have to take a trial and perform. So they can see, how do you teach different levels, how do you do this and how do you do that, yeah? Anyway, back to the essay. So I say, okay, interviews are good, but you need to prove it. Can you prove it? So in conclusion, interviews are not infallible. Other selection tools, work samples, aptitude tests, or trial tasks. Okay, so you can see the difference between the two. Let me just get this all on the screen so you can pause this and you can, okay, it's all there, all right? So I hope that gives you some idea. So I specifically talked about method and means, right? It says, some people don't think that interviews are the best way. I say, well, you know, I can see why people think of this. Interviews do have their place, but we also need, maybe for certain jobs, to include work samples, aptitude tests, or trial tasks, etc. Yeah? So, that's what I was talking about the previous essay. Apart from it being way too short, it doesn't talk about means or method, which is what the question is. So as a consequence, task response score would not be high. Grammar, lexis. Now the reason I'm only talking about this is because this is what the examiners look at first. This is what they do first, right? That's where they start. How well have you answered the question? Then they look at your cohesion, coherence, grammar and vocab and etc. So that's the first thing. Task response. Make sure that you completely understand what the question is and answer it to the best of your ability. Right, that's enough for me for today. I've got some lessons coming up soon, so hope that helps. Links below if you want to join my groups on Telegram for IELTS, OET. If you want to contact me, check out my podcast site, kevsinglishpodcast.com. Some good stuff there. If you want to be a guest, feel free to contact me, because I'm always looking for international students and people to speak to be guests on my podcast. Okay, that's enough. I'll see you later. Bye for now.